This is the Gutsy Health Podcast with Janique and Tristan Roney. Hey guys, welcome back to the Gutsy Health Podcast.
Hey, welcome back, everybody.
I'm laughing because I have no idea what we're talking about today.
This is how we always do it.
This
like really we ever know what we're talking about.
Yep, and we're doing our little social experiment of recording on Instagram as well as recording an episode. So we're going to try and answer some questions that people have, as well as just go with the flow here. And I'm going to take your cues.
Yeah. So I know exactly what I'm talking about today. I've been thinking about this for like a week and a half.
You've been thinking about this for like 3 months.
Well, that's fair too. Yeah. But actually thinking about this episode for a while, like a week and a half, because it's one that's been such a big deal. I mean, everybody is experiencing some degree of anxiety or another because of being on lockdown and having so much, ambiguity about how things are going to look in the future.
If you are listening to this episode sometime in the future of like 2021, 22, what is happening right now is COVID-19 and the whole world just kind of losing their minds, and we're in shutdown, and like stock market has crashed and small businesses are going out of business, and it's been brutal and people are dying.
Well, and actually the worst part is that we don't even know how this is going at this point. It's so early in everything that so far businesses haven't gone out of business yet. So far, you know, we haven't hit the millions of people dying, have we?
No, we're not even close.
100,000, is that where we're at?
No, like globally?
Yeah, globally.
Oh, I don't know.
Anyway, we have no idea what the future looks like. And that's what's so anxiety provoking about this situation, right? We don't know when we're going to get to go back to work, when we're going to get to go back to restaurants.
None of us have ever experienced this.
When we're going to get to see our relatives again. And that's causing a lot of anxiety. Plus, I think maybe something special for the people that tend to follow us is we already have some health stuff going on, and this type of situation can really spike your health anxiety, especially when you are constantly reading in the media over and over again about how, you know, devastating this disease can be to people and how many people are getting infected and how fast it is spreading and everything like that.
Right.
So what I want to talk about today is what we need to do as individuals to keep ourselves in the right headspace.
Right.
Because there's no changing what's going on around us. At this point, it is thrust upon us, and there's nothing we can do to really block that out. There's some stuff we can do.
Sure.
But for the most part, if we are going to have peace and if we are going to have joy, then it's going to have to come from inside.
Well, always. That's always been true though. This isn't like, it's not like COVID-19 hit and it's like, oh my gosh, we need to find peace and joy again. It's like, no, we've always needed to grow, like harness and harvest peace and joy. And
I think what this event has done though is that it has made that so very clear.
It's been a catalyst. It's like we've all just been we've just been going, like just floating by, and then something just turned over our boat. And
right. And Disney can only early release so many movies before we run out of stuff to watch. And then we have to deal with this situation.
It's true.
So in order for us to really talk about this though, we first need to talk about kind of where we've been and why we have any right to talk about this. Now, I also want to acknowledge right off the bat that a lot of people really dislike this topic right now.
Sure.
Any kind of positivity on social media
around COVID-19,
or, well, really just positivity in general, seems to be met with some hostility, not from everybody. And there are people who appreciate the positivity, but there are some people out there who feel like it's our duty as individuals to be distraught about the situation because people are dying, which, you know, I want to acknowledge that, yes, this is a terrible situation. It's scary. It's sad how many people are dying and getting really sick, and how all the healthcare workers are just being overrun with work.
So I want to say something about that really fast. Healthcare workers being overrun with work is this this increase in anxiety is bringing people to hospitals in droves.
Yeah.
They are overwhelmed by people being overwhelmed, and people just coming in for a mild cold or mild something, but these people think they're dying. They think they're dying. And so that's adding to
and that's
the
only
hysteria.
making it worse. And in some areas that's on top of already being just slammed with legitimate COVID-19 cases and all sorts of other stuff. Just because COVID-19 is a big deal doesn't mean all the other diseases decided to take a vacation, except for pneumonia, I guess. That's all turned into COVID-19.
Are we going to talk about that?
No, we're not.
Okay, that's a different episode for a different time.
That's a totally different subject because we are talking today about how to keep yourself steady. No, better than that. How to actually experience joy, how to thrive, even when the world around you seems like it's literally falling to pieces.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about why we have any right to be talking about this. Took me a long time to actually say that.
Because it's been our life the past 3 years.
Well, it goes back further than that, though. My bachelor's degree was in psychology. Right. I've been studying this subject of mental health since I was 20.
When did we meet?
23, 24 years old. 23. I think I was 23 when I changed my major to psychology.
Yeah.
I'm 37 now. So 14 years, 15 years.
Long time.
I'm old. And then I did a master's degree in counseling psychology, but more importantly, it was a master's degree in contemplative psychotherapy, which is basically Buddhist psychology. And a big part of what we did was meditation. So I literally got a master's degree in how to meditate. Which included daily meditation through the whole 3-year program. It included
3 months of meditation. You had to go to like
2 months.
2 months. That's right.
Yeah. These were month-long meditation retreats away from Jeanique, by the way. Which
I saw him for like a day in like per month. He would be gone for like 2 weeks, and then we'd have like one day that we could like see each other. And then, so we had to like write to each other.
And so I got a master's degree in that. And then I did a PhD. Well, I started a PhD. Oh, we're not going to make it very far on this live. The battery's going to die soon. Right. So I went and started doing a PhD in psychology, counseling psychology again. And during that time, I commissioned into the Air Force. And so I went and did commissioned officer training, boot camp in the Air Force.
Literal opposite of a meditation retreat, mind you.
It was a very different kind of meditation.
Very opposite.
I was meditating on survival.
Yeah.
And I was a good 10 years older than the average person there. Right. So I've, I went through some training. I learned some things about taking care of yourself mentally.
Yeah.
But the real training for me began shortly after boot camp, when I was finally getting to work in my chosen field and just months away from getting my PhD and becoming a doctor. I was diagnosed with cancer, as most of you already know. And that was where the real training started for both of us, because as it turns out, all the stuff you learn in books, no matter how many books you've read, doesn't really translate to this is what real life is like.
Yeah.
And so I went through all of the emotional experiences, depression, severe anxiety that I'm going to get to. That didn't even peak for a long time.
Right.
There were joyful moments too. Lots of really good stuff that came out of this. But that was incredibly hard. There was pain. There was the not knowing. There was the being told with pretty high confidence that you're going to die, which, by the way, is a completely different experience when it comes to anxiety.
Yeah.
I mean, what else? We had a baby in the middle of that. Well, Jeanique had a baby I got to watch.
That was fun.
It was, I'm sure.
I'm very silent right now because I don't like going back into those memories. I haven't processed it as well as you have. So that's why I'm here listening, just like everyone else. I'm just like, let's learn from you.
So anyway, we go through all the treatments. We have a new baby come into our lives. Then we're told, oh, by the way, the cancer has spread. It's in your lungs. You're going to die. Good luck
Yeah.
out there.
Let's just keep doing more chemo until you die.
To top it off, less than a week later, I find out I'm getting kicked out of the military because of this, which means I have to drop out of my training program, which means I'm no longer going to be Dr. Roney. In fact, I'm not going to get my PhD at all unless I want to do at least 3 more years of training that I didn't even know I had left in my life at that point.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying all of this to make anyone feel bad for us. Just trying to express that, like, we've been to some dark places.
Right.
Right. So, and a lot of you know this story. At that point, we kind of gave up on the whole chemo radiation thing because we were told it's not going to help very much anymore. We started our alternative clinic. We got some hope back. Things started changing. My health turned around quite a bit. And there's sort of a gap in there where we cruised for a while, right? I mean, we were focused on building the business and raising our kids, moving, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
But then where does it really peak? Probably, so in October of 2019. Yeah. So what has it been now? 5 months?
I think 6.
6 months almost. We're going on 6 months. Our hyperbaric chambers were shut down by the government.
It was pretty devastating.
It was a big blow because for one, we had invested a huge amount of money into those chambers. We were in massive debt.
That wasn't even part of it for me. It wasn't even the financial stuff. It was the hope that so many people had lost. So many people were doing so well. So many cancer patients, so many Lyme patients, so many people. And
word was finally spreading what was possible with these. We were finally seeing some really great results from this, and we've been
seeing great results the entire time we'd been utilizing it.
Fair.
It was amazing. I had a friend in my book club ask me, like, how many cancer patients have you guys lost? And this was literally like 2 months before the chamber shut down, and I said none.
At that point, it was none. So anyway, the chambers get shut down, and it's devastating. I mean, yes, the bigger part was definitely that people lost this resource in the community. But there was also the personal hit that, like, at that point in time, it made up a good 50% of our revenues. Right. Yeah. And so there was a lot of uncertainty, and anxiety started to rise up. But then
we started losing friends.
Then people started dying. And I'm not trying to say that people started dying because they didn't have access to the chambers.
No, not at all.
We have no idea what contributed to what. No. It's just that people started dying. And the very first one that died was actually a really big blow to me.
That's why I'm like, why are we recording?
So, we're recording because we're processing, and because people need to understand what you go through, right? And that started kind of a bit of a landslide, so to speak, because more people died. And then I went through some more health things myself back in, I guess it was started in December. Right? Mm-hmm. I started wheezing, and I haven't actually talked about this.
Nope.
And that was terrifying for me, specifically because the cancer had spread to my lungs. Right, back when I was told I was going to die, it was because it was in my lungs, and so this new symptom showed up, and it scared the crap out of me. And
out of both of us.
Yeah, out of us, and I don't even know how much detail to go into on this, but this was a very long and drawn out experience. And the anxiety of it also contributed to the development of other symptoms that were equally terrifying. I was getting pain in my chest, which I later realized had nothing to do with the wheezing. It was a totally separate symptom, but again, I didn't know. Right. And there was this constant questioning of, is it time for me to go get another scan? Am I going to have to think again about doing chemo and radiation and all that stuff? What does this mean for my life expectancy? All sorts of horrible things. What else goes into that time period? that's probably, I had a really terrible emotional experience that was kind of related to it and kind of not, that just made me really freak out about my own mortality. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So sort of a spiritual crisis. And I began for the first time in my life to have panic attacks, like full blown, I am dying right now, I'm having a heart attack, panic attacks. And they would last for long periods of time into the middle of the night. And they were absolutely awful. Couldn't sleep. I began to dread going to bed at night because nighttime was when these things tended to show up for me.
Right.
It was by far the worst experience of my life, including all of the original cancer diagnosis and treatments and things like that. So at one point in this, and this, by the way, wasn't that long ago. This was a month ago.
Yeah.
Is all. Yeah. When things finally started turning around for me. And this is where finally I'm going to give you guys something useful. Hopefully by now it's well established that I've been to dark places. We've both been to dark places, and this isn't even covering everything.
I want to say like dark, like that's an understatement. Like we don't talk about it a lot ever. Like we don't open up to people about these dark places because they don't understand it, unless you've been there, you can't, like, I think in our cancer circles, we all look at each other and we get it, we see it in each other in like a post, and you see what they're not seeing in the post, but you know exactly what they're feeling. And it's just, it's dark. It's really hard, and it's really dark, and it's hard to let people hear it.
Yeah, well, it's hard to be vulnerable. And I think maybe that's why I wanted to do this live and not just record it, because if we're going to be vulnerable, like,
right, let's just do it.
Let's just really lean into it.
Yeah.
So this is my coming out, basically, to say that, like, no, I haven't been all right.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I've been a big sloppy mess. And the few moments where I've kind of been okay were the moments where I was, recording the podcast, or when we were, interacting with clients and things. So this hasn't really been visible to most people, but, yeah, go ahead.
I just had a thought come to me. Experiences from this year and experiences from like 3 years ago. I remember, and again, it's just to say, like, you can't judge a book by its cover. This is why we need to be so gentle with each other, with our words, with people that we interact with. I mean, that goes for me as well, obviously. But I remember I was so pregnant while Tristan was going through chemotherapy, and we would go grocery shopping, and I'm holding Tennyson and the grocery bags, and people are staring at us, and Tristan's just walking, and he looks like a healthy grown man. And in my head, I always remember thinking, if only you knew. And it's interesting because I've had so many, like, I'm not complaining, but I just want to bring it aware to people. When we talk about these topics, people are like, well, you guys are healthy. Like you have no say in this. And I'm like, you have no idea what we're going through. You have zero idea, like, what we are going through. Like, you have no idea. No. And so when people are using these words as weapons against each other, you try to, we just can't see everyone's paths, and so to condemn people and to, we just need to be really careful, I think. And, what were we talking about?
Yeah. So where things started turning around, and this is where I'm going to start preaching.
Yeah.
So this is where you can start taking notes on what is actually helpful. And what's funny is that what has worked for me, what has turned things around, is in fact what I was learning about all those years in school. All the academic stuff does work, but the application of it in real life is so different from how it looks on paper. Right? To sit in a therapy room with someone across from them on the couch and say, here's what you need to do. and then expect them to go and do it and come back and report how great the results are. That is, we're asking a lot of our therapy clients when we do that, is what I've realized, because it doesn't just happen. You don't just do it and then, whoa, magic, I feel better now. Right. It takes some incredible self-discipline, some incredible trust to do these things, and to basically go against what your instincts want you to do in order to get the results you want. And here's how it happened for me. Janique basically woke up one day. I don't know exactly what the thought process was, but she woke up and said, it's time for us to do something about this. I'm going to book this really intense emotional experience for Tristan that he's not going to be able to get out of. and this, by the way, was...
It's a healing retreat. It's not like it's a healing retreat in Costa Rica.
An incredibly intense emotional experience that we had talked about a few times, but that I had very adamantly said, no, thank you to, right? I had said multiple times, no, I'm not doing that. I am not doing that. That is the very last thing that I can handle doing right now.
And then I was like, well, I booked it.
And then one morning I wake up and she's like, guess what I did? We're going to Costa Rica. And I had 2 weeks.
It was 3.
I had 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks. I think it was 20 days to prepare myself. And now, to be totally fair, I still could have backed out of that, right? I still could have said, that's not happening. I think that there was a deposit down, but it wasn't paid for. So, there were still ways to wiggle out.
It's paid for now, by the way.
But
there's no wiggling out.
But what I realized in that moment, and that was maybe the most valuable moment in this whole experience for me, was that I could backpedal and escape that scariness, but I would never escape the fear unless I leaned into it. And so I decided, all right, since she made it so easy for me, I'm going to lean into this, and I'm going to do the thing that seems scarier than anything else I could possibly do, because I trust that I'll come out okay on the other side. And that decision in that moment was so incredibly powerful, because from that moment on, my momentum changed. And momentum is a really important word here, by the way, because momentum is everything when it comes to our emotional experience. So in that moment, I went from momentum that was on its way to kill me. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I was on my way to dying young, to reversing that and pulling myself out of a very dark place into a place of great hope and possibility and power, really, is I think the best way to describe it. But that was just the beginning of the work, right? The work that I'm still in the beginning of, because there were still panic attacks after that moment. There were still really long nights of sleeplessness and fear and like cortisol explosions where my entire body is shaking for hours at a time, right? This was still happening. But again, things were shifting in my favor. And because of that single moment, I was able to take bigger and bigger steps going forward. So that is the first key for everyone to really take notes on here, which is that when we fully commit to something, even if we aren't entirely sure how things are going to turn out, if we can just find one thing to put our trust in, just one thing to put our faith in and say, okay, I don't see how this works out in my favor, but I've been told, and it has this little glimmer of truth to me. I'm going to lean into that, and I'm going to dedicate myself to it, and we'll see what happens. Right. And that was a massive game changer for me. And I hope that you can find the same. It doesn't matter really even what you pick. It's just that there's something out there that you can believe in. That might be a religion for you. That might be a philosophical teaching that you've come across. It could be a good book that you read once 10 years ago. It doesn't really matter. The important thing is that you get that little tiny glimmer of hope, and you say, okay, I'm going with that. I'm just going to lean into that 100%.
I think there's a lot of intuition. Like when you, there's that book called The Dark Night of the Soul. I think once you've hit that rock bottom, I think sometimes intuition can play a really big part in it. And so when you're saying, what is that thing that pulls you out? I mean, do some deep, dark soul searching and, it'll come to you. I honestly, truly believe that we're never left alone. Like we are always being guided. The universe always has your back. The universe always says yes. You just have to say yes too, and it will meet you halfway. And so that's my 2 cents.
And that's your philosophical belief.
That's my philosophical belief, yes.
Or your spiritual belief, or whatever you want to call it. And that's not necessarily the one that everybody has to hold.
Right.
But everybody does need to find something that helps them get to a place of all is well.
Right.
And you can do that as an atheist. I 1000% believe that.
Well, what I'm saying is whatever you believe, there's always intuition and hope that can help you pull out of it, whatever that looks like and resonates to you as.
Yes. And intuition is also a huge factor here, because anxiety is a direct result of losing touch with your intuition.
Right.
If you are 100% in contact with your intuition, there is no room for anxiety there, because you have no doubt about the direction you're going or what the future holds for you.
I like how Gabriella Bernstein, that's how she says
Gabrielle Bernstein.
She in Super Attractor says, fear, which is anxiety, is a result of fear. She says, fear is a reminder to go back to love. And if you are experiencing fear, it's because you have shifted away from a space of love or a mindset of love. And I really like that, because whenever I am in my dark night of the soul anxiety pit, it reminds me, wow, I didn't just come here overnight. It was me forgetting to hold space in love. And love can be, I don't know, courage, or our camera just died there, by the way.
Oh, all right. Well, sorry, everyone that was live. We'll finish this
right. And
audially.
Yeah, exactly. So I like that she said that. And that's one thing that I think, if we are experiencing fear, it's a reminder for us to move towards something else.
Yeah. And she also says another really important thing that needs to take place at that step, which is you need to forgive yourself for getting to that place in the first position, right? We do make the decisions that kind of lead us to the point where we find ourselves. And when you're in the middle of that dark night of the soul, so to speak, it is partially, at least, the result of several different decisions that you made over time. And it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to add self-judgment on top of that. Right. And that was something really important for me to learn. In fact, one of the other things that really helped me, specifically, was I started reading a book, and I'm not going to remember the name. It's Ravikant is his last name, but the book is called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And I bought the book purely based on intuition, because I think I heard him on a podcast talking about it. And he said, "Oh, I've got this book. I just did a new edition. You can only get it in a physical copy." And I was like, I never read physical books, but you know what? That sounds like something that would be really helpful for me.
Right.
So I bought a physical book, which doesn't happen very often.
You don't do that.
And I read like the first 2 chapters of it, and that all on its own made a huge shift for me.
Yeah.
Because what I learned from it, or what I remembered from it, was that the way that we talk to ourselves matters a lot.
It does.
If we are constantly judging ourselves, if we are constantly doubting ourselves, if we are constantly focusing on what is inadequate about ourselves, then we will feel bad and inadequate and terrible.
Right.
And how can a person who is inadequate and terrible have anything good happen to them in life? They don't, which means bad things happen to them, which means it makes sense that you would constantly expect bad things are going to happen to you.
Right.
And that's anxiety, right? You don't know what those bad things are. It doesn't matter. They're going to be bad. So paying attention to the way you speak to yourself and training yourself to speak differently can turn things around in an instant.
Right.
And
keyword on training yourself, because you have to practice it over and over and over.
And this is where momentum comes in, because you can't speak poorly to yourself. You can't have a negative self-image for decades and then have a moment of clarity, and then suddenly your momentum has completely shifted.
Right.
Granted, it's happened before. It does happen. But for most people, most of the time, you have to slow down the train before the train stops and can start going in reverse.
Right.
Right.
That's so true. And that's really important, you guys, Tristan saying slow down the train, because a lot of times people start implementing these practices and after a while they're like, it's not working. And it's like, well, it is, but you're slowing down that train, so that it can go into reverse. So be patient with yourself and be kind to yourself as you're not broken because it's not working.
Right.
No one's ever broken.
But the other piece is be relentless in your efforts.
Like your life depends on it, because it does.
It is not enough for you to spend 2 minutes in the evening thinking about this and an hour once a week thinking about this. Okay. It's not enough.
Yep.
You need to be as many times a day as possible thinking about this stuff and figuring out what it takes to get you to a different state of emotional being.
I want to use a visual example for listeners right now. You know, these people that embark on these bikini bodybuilding competitions. If I, and I'm never going to do those, but if I went to a personal trainer and I said, listen, I want to completely transform my body, but I only have 2 hours a week to do it. Nay, I only have 3 minutes a day. I only have 3 minutes a day to do it. Can you make me win a competition? Can you transform my body? They will laugh at me and they'll be like, that is absolutely impossible. You need and I think these people spend 2 to 3 hours a day, exercising in the gym, lifting weights, running, and then that doesn't even include the meal prep stuff. The meal prep stuff, they spend thousands of dollars. I know some people that have spent $5,000 per competition on personal trainers and foods and, whatever, to transform their bodies physically. Now, when it comes to transforming your mind mentally, it takes the same amount of effort. Different effort, but it's a lot of work.
And one thing I do want to really put out there is that it doesn't have to be a slow process, but it does. You need to treat it like a long-term gig, right? This isn't a decision you make one day and then everything switches for you. This is something that even if you get fantastic results the very first time you put effort into it, you still have to plan to do that every day, multiple times a day for the rest of your life.
Totally.
That's just how it works, because the natural momentum of the mind, the human mind, which is very mortal and flawed, is to go towards what's wrong.
I thought you were going to say the natural man is an enemy to God.
Nope.
That scripture just came into my mind.
It is Sunday, so there's your church, everybody. But no, I'm saying, and maybe there's a parallel there that I can't get into, but basically the natural direction of the mind is to figure out where the dangers are. That's how our physical bodies have evolved, because that's what it took to survive for thousands and thousands of years of human civilization. So if we are not constantly creating momentum for ourselves in the direction we want to go, then nature will take over. And it'll set us back into a primal state.
The natural man.
The natural man. So be it. That's what we're going to call it. And while that is fine for survival, what we want for ourselves, what we want for you, and what we hope you want for yourself is so much more than just to survive. And that's where what is happening right now in the world around us is so very important for us to pay attention to, because the world is in survival mode.
Right.
This is why people get angry when you talk about positivity in this environment.
Right.
Because
they're all drowning and they're like, why aren't you drowning with us?
They are in survival mode. And someone in survival mode sees any kind of letdown of vigilance as a threat to survival.
Yeah.
How dare you see what's beautiful Because while you're off staring at the clouds, you're about to get stabbed in the back by your enemies.
Right.
Right? That's how their brain is thinking.
Right.
And that's how your brain might be thinking, which is okay. You can forgive yourself of that because it doesn't have to stay that way.
Right.
Right? You have the chance to acknowledge that, oh, this is what I've been doing.
Right.
What can I do differently in this moment to start to shift my momentum?
Right.
And it's not always going to be profound. In fact, one of my earliest turnarounds in this whole experience was having a panic attack and being able to separate myself mentally from what was happening to me physically. Mm-hmm. All right. I'm hyperventilating. My heart is pounding like 120 beats per minute, probably, while I'm laying there doing nothing. And I was able to somehow separate myself from that and say, all you have to do is just keep breathing.
Yeah.
That's it. Just slow down your breathing.
Yeah.
And let this ride itself out. And it didn't really stop the panic attack, at least physically. My body was still 1000% charged up.
Yeah.
But my experience of it, my perception of what was happening completely shifted.
Yeah.
To where I was no longer spiraling in my thoughts. Mm-hmm. I was present and I was able to observe what was happening to me. And, 45, 60 minutes later, I was able to fall asleep, which for me was pretty good compared to what had been happening before. Right. So sometimes it's that simple. Sometimes it's not even about getting to good. It's just about
getting to okay.
Not being trapped in terrible. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Getting to meh.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well,
I'm not dying today.
That's right. And so then once again, we come back to this concept of momentum. So I had the initial moment of, hey, I'm on a train. Maybe it's possible for this train to go a different direction.
Yeah.
And then I had this first experience of, hey, maybe I can kind of put the brakes on this train just a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then I realized the ways I was talking to myself, the ways I was looking at myself, and the kind of the negative patterns that I was perpetuating with all of these less than fully conscious thoughts I was having about myself and my experience. And that helped me put the brakes on even more. And then I started remembering more of my training in my past. And I thought, hey, you know what's cool that I haven't done in way too long? Meditation. Maybe I should try that.
That's so weird.
Which I know, like I am very flawed. It took me a good 6 months from when this spiral started before I thought to go back to the thing that I got a master's degree in. All right, I know that's ridiculous, but that's how this whole thing works, right? That's how momentum is. It gives us tunnel vision.
Well, that's how trauma works too.
Yeah.
Trauma can really get you stuck in a hole, in a negative pattern, and almost trick you into thinking that this is the only way that it can be. And like you said, you need that catalyst, you need that momentum to kind of snap you out of it. And for you, that snap back was, hey, I'm taking you to Costa Rica, whether you like it or not. Right. So hopefully listeners out there, hopefully with COVID-19, this is our snapback, right? Like the way we are reacting right now, and you explained this to me beautifully earlier today, how we are reacting right now, we've always been like that, but it's just been super subdued. That has been our most primal, most like yes, it's always been there. It's not like we completely changed character. So what COVID-19 is allowing us to do is reflect and be like, how is this serving me? How is like my tendency to always go towards fear and always go towards panic and always go to worst case scenario? How is this serving us? How is this serving the world? And we might be thinking, well, it's keeping me alive. Is it? Mm-hmm. Is it really keeping you alive? Mm-hmm. Because when we really look at our circumstances, like we've always been surrounded by things like COVID-19, MRSA, there are things out there. And I want to express, a lot of people have asked like, well, how have you guys been so calm during this? And it's like, because we have faced death. And now everyone, like when you're in the cancer world, you face death and you have to process it, right? It's this big, bad, ugly guy. Like the way I explained people to other people what death feels like to me. It's like I'm in a glass house in the middle of the woods and it's pitch black, but I can sense that there is someone on the outside of this glass house just looking in. That's what death feels like to me. And it's just, and I can feel those eyes on me, and it's terrifying because I feel so vulnerable, and I've had to process that. So now with COVID-19 hitting everyone is now in their glass houses with death staring at them. And they're realizing that they are, that they're not invincible, basically. And everyone is kind of losing their minds. Well, and because it's scary. That is a scary reality.
I mean, for half of the people listening, it's COVID-19. For the other half, it's the economic meltdown that's following COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
It's people who suddenly can't go into work and it's not possible to remote work. So now you are among the 6.6 million or however many it's at now, Americans who had to file for unemployment.
Well, yep.
And you're getting this stimulus check that covers part of your rent for 1 month. And then what? Right. And those questions are just as scary because they don't just affect you and your personal health. They also affect your family and your children and your ability to keep your family and your children safe.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And so it's very, very easy to spiral. It really is. But here's another little trick. There's this philosophy called Stoicism out there. And the idea of Stoicism is that you let yourself mentally go to the absolute worst place imaginable, sit there and say, okay, is this doable? So think of the worst case scenario in your situation.
Yeah.
Let's say that everyone in your house gets COVID-19, plus everyone loses their jobs and you lose the house. So you're out on the street. You're homeless now. You've all been really sick and now your lungs aren't working very well. Is this situation doable? And unless you get to a place of being able to say yes, you will continue to have terrible anxiety.
Yep.
You will. There is no escaping the worst case scenario. There is only making peace with it. Because most of it's outside of your control.
All of it is outside of our control.
Well, except for how you respond to it.
Yes.
Right? That's the one thing that you get to maintain control over is how you respond.
Yep.
And this is just my opinion, but if you can respond to even the worst case scenario with an open mind, with open eyes, and with open arms, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
All will be well. But you have to trust that.
Right.
Right. So what else? What else is helpful?
I don't know. What else is helpful for people?
What else is helpful when you are spiraling in anxiety? Yeah.
So we've touched on this before, but I mean, okay, guys, we have to have like a divorce with the media. Like we have to set up healthy boundaries. If you were in a relationship with someone who constantly told you terrible things about you, about your family, about your world, would you still be in a relationship with this person? Hopefully not, because you'd recognize it's a toxic relationship. That is our relationship with the media right now. Like it is, and everyone is a statistician right now. Everyone is throwing out statistics on hundreds of millions of people are going to die. Really? Like, how do we know that? You know, like everyone is throwing out these numbers and we are fixating on these numbers and we are terrified. We're terrified. And here is if a true like statistician, am I saying the right word? Statistician. Thank you. If a true statistician came out and told you the truth about this, they would say all of these numbers are completely bogus. Like the testing is terrible. The numbers are terrible. The reports are terrible. Like we're not doing a good job. I guess I can't say we're all guessing, but like we'll talk about it in another episode. So what I'm saying is everything that you are being fed right now is potentially not even true. And yet we are terrified of this. And we just need to, say, okay, I will do some reading up on the status of whatever you need to understand for 30 minutes a day. And then you're done. Then you're done, and go and gravitate towards happier things.
And
read a happier book.
30 minutes might be generous because it really only takes about 5 minutes to get caught up on
and
what
triggered.
has changed since yesterday.
Right.
But once again, this comes back to momentum. When you feed your brain a constant stream of negativity and fear and boredom and you name it, that's what is going to be bred in your mind. Your mind will latch onto that and say, oh, look at all these good reasons for me to be terrified.
Yep.
Let's go with that thought.
Right. Like seriously, guys, listen to some great audiobooks. You know, there are so many incredible authors out there, inspiring books, you know, self-help books. If there is any time that we need self-help, it's now. And, you know, Audible is just one download away. You know, start buying some books and listening to them over and over and over.
They don't have to be self-help books. I've actually started listening to The Wizard of Oz recently.
Oh yeah.
Because it's free, or at least it was free on iBooks. And it's fun. It's a really fun story. The book is even better. People always say this, the book is better than the movie. No, it is. It's a really fun book. And the point is though, that it gets you to a good mental state.
Yeah.
That's what matters. So whatever works for you to do that.
Yeah.
The other night for me, actually, I guess it's been a couple weeks now, but I randomly decided I'm going to go on TikTok. I hate TikTok. I tried it in January and it pissed me off. But that night I was feeling like, you know what? I think TikTok could be fun. So I went on TikTok and I laughed my butt off for like 3 hours.
There's some funny people in the world.
It's hilarious. And so I had a really great experience. It was like a positive spiritual experience for me to just laugh and laugh and laugh because I hadn't done it in so long.
Yeah. There's that story about the two wolves, right? Like there's two wolves inside people, and one is evil and the other one is good. And, you know, the person will say, well, which wolf? And they're fighting. The two wolves are constantly
They're
fighting.
equally matched in strength and ferociousness
or
and
something like
everything.
that. Yeah.
So which one wins?
Which one wins? And the answer is the one that you feed. You know, so when it comes to good versus evil, happiness versus fear and terror, or love versus fear, like what are you feeding right now? You know, are you, I don't know, like pining over more stats and more information and like, what is my doom? You know, or are you creating your own path and your own story and not having that story be written for you by some anchor on the TV? You know, where are you? Where are your thoughts flowing? Because I say this so many times on the podcast, where thoughts go, energy flows. I think that's even in my email, like my email signatures at the bottom. It says, Janique Roney, where thoughts go, energy flows.
The other thing Janique says a lot that is really relevant here is what wires together, fires together, right? If you have associated all these different parts of your life with fear and worry, then that's what's going to get triggered for you all the time.
And I think you know, that is so true, because I see everyone creating these new wirings in their brain, this new world. And then when they are trying to impose that on me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, that's not my wiring. Like, I don't see through that lens, you know, and it feels almost abrasive, where I'm like, wow, I'm sorry, I'm not in that space you're in. And you can't pull me down there. And I'm really sorry that like,
and specifically talking about our mental state, right? So, and I just want to separate that from, you know, the guidelines to socially isolate, which maybe are not the words they use social distancing, but yes, do your part, right?
Sure.
Don't go and break quarantine or whatever it is going on in your area because you're not afraid, but don't let yourself get used to that. Don't let yourself start to believe that that's normal and good, because it's not. This social isolation that we're all experiencing is incredibly damaging to us, not just mentally and emotionally, but physically. People literally die from social isolation all the time.
Right.
And here we are imposing it on each other in the name of saving lives, which I understand that needs to happen, but don't let it be okay.
Right.
please keep looking forward to the day when you can get back out there and embrace your loved ones and hang out with your friends and socialize out in public with crowds of people.
Yes.
That is going to be beautiful. It's going to feel so good. Don't let yourself become afraid of it.
I want to remind everyone about, we're trying to create our environment to be as sterile as possible. When we were at the grocery store today, there's people working there spraying down everything as you are like shopping. It's ridiculous. It's like a sci-fi movie. And I almost want to shake people and remind them, studies have shown that people that have stronger immune systems are those that have grown up with pets. Why? Because pets are nasty. They're dirty. They bring in tons of bacteria and tons of nasty things into the house. And guess what? That makes your immune system stronger. So yes, this needs to be a temporary thing, but don't be scared of the germs. The germs make your immune system stronger. And again, this fear of illness, this fear of bugs and germs, it started before COVID-19. I've seen this in our clinic time and time again, where moms bring in their kids who have a cold or have the flu and they're freaking out. They're like, I'm going to take my son to the ER right now. I'm like, why? His fever's 101. Like, it's doing its job. Just trust it. Give it a few days. Give it a week.
And we've been there ourselves, right?
Oh, sure.
I mean, how many nurses hotlines have we called when our kids were really young and they had a fever? And of course, that was not helpful because all they say is, you should probably go
to that. Right.
Go
exactly.
to urgent care, go to the ER.
But what I'm trying to say is we need to remember our bodies, the majority of us, there are immunocompromised people, right, out there. But the majority of us, we have bodies that are designed to deal with these things and to help heal us and to become stronger and to create immunity. Trying to protect ourselves from all the germs all the time, never touching people again, never going out and playing in a sandbox or outside on a playground. That is going to hurt us all long term.
And so to put that in context with what we've been talking about, both things are true. It is true that we have this deadly disease out there that transmits rapidly through the population, kills a much higher percentage, most likely, than the typical flu does. And that's scary. But we also have this other truth that we have these amazing systems that are capable of overcoming all sorts of different diseases. And most of us can really trust that. And just because one of these two things is true doesn't invalidate the other one. There is a duality. And our ability to hold that duality also enables us to stay sane in this environment. So when we talk about this, when we say your body is strong, your immune system can handle this, we are not invalidating the dangers out there. It's just a question of which of these truths do you want to focus on? And again, this is what we're all about, is self-empowerment. We know you can focus on the truth of my body is strong and healthy, and I'm going to live a lifestyle that reinforces that, and we talk about that all the time. You can change the outcome of your health by what you eat every day. You have 3 opportunities a day to build your body up or break it down. And that is what you put on your plate. That is what you're prepping in your kitchen, so if this is a catalyst towards making lifestyle changes, then great. What a great catalyst to inspire you. Cancer was our catalyst. We didn't eat well. Tennyson ate Chick-fil-A every other day, and then cancer hit us, and that was our catalyst to, be propelled into this world of health and wellness and education. Let COVID-19 be your catalyst towards a new and improved you. Not just physically, but emotionally.
Totally.
Because
absolutely.
You can heal your body with your thoughts. I believe that without any doubt whatsoever.
And I want to share a great story that one of my followers shared with me. She told me today, and we're not hearing these stories. We're just hearing the doom and gloom. But she said, both my in-laws have type 2 diabetes. My mother-in-law is doing cancer treatments right now for cancer. And they both got diagnosed they were both tested positive for COVID-19. And they survived. She said it was like easier than the common flu. They did vitamin C, they did low carb, because they're diabetic. So low carb, they watched what they were eating. Vitamin C, they did iodine, turmeric, and what was the other thing? I can't remember. But she said quercetin. And she's like, and it was less than a week and they were fine. And this is so great for them because now they have immunity. Right. We are delaying this herd immunity, and we're just prolonging our fear. And obviously I don't want everyone to get COVID-19. Well, not at all.
And if your anger is rising right now, check in with that. Because once again, we are not saying that because there are stories about people recovering easily, that there are not people out there who are dying from it or having a terrible time of it. Both things are equally true and equally possible. Right. But where are you going to put your personal energy?
Right.
Where are you going to put it? There is one thing that I want you to get out of this more than anything else in the world. And that is that your emotional well-being is the single most important thing that you have. Feeling good is the single most important goal that you have in your life. And I'm not exaggerating in the least. Everything you do, all of your life goals, all of your intentions are all driving towards what final outcome? You want to feel good. Yep. And I don't mean pleasure. I don't mean you want to drink a big chocolate shake because that tastes good. You want to feel good. You want your emotional state to be happy and positive and peaceful and wonderful. Yeah. Why are you waiting for the circumstances around you to line up so that you can give yourself permission to feel that way now? Yeah. Why are you waiting for it? That's not how it works. And this, by the way, I'm getting off on a tangent, but this drives me nuts about the law of attraction people. I love law of attraction. I think there's a lot of great stuff from it, but I cannot stand listening to a lot of law of attraction people because they talk about this in terms of when you get everything you want. Right? If you align yourself with the universe, then the universe will give you everything you want and then you'll be happy. No, that's not how it works. Yeah. It's not how it works. You get yourself into alignment by feeling good. That's the whole point of it. Yeah. Right? So why wait? Feel good now. Yeah. Figure out what helps you get to feeling good now and go there and stay there as long as you can and do everything you can to stay there. Yeah. Because that is what's going to help you create a world for yourself that continues to help you feel good. That's the momentum I'm talking about. Right. Get yourself to feel good. Bring to yourself the things that help you continue to feel good and continue to feel good and continue to bring to yourself things that help you feel good. Do you see where I'm going with this? Yeah. Which is not to say that bad things won't happen here and there. Right. But if you've got that momentum in your favor where 9 out of 10 things are good, it is so much easier to bounce back from the 1 out of 10 things that goes wrong. Right. It's funny because there's that app called The Daily Shifts. We love that app, by the way. And it makes you write down 3 times a day things that, or not, is it 3 times a day? It's, well, there's 3 check-ins every day, but it doesn't always, it only asks you your gratitude things at the beginning. Now you guys know how often I do it. At least once a day. I'm consistent. Justin's really consistent with it. I'm not. I have to be. But it makes you like, you check in with yourself, right? You write down things you're grateful for. You take a moment to really appreciate the world around you. It makes you write down your goals or do like a 2-minute meditation. And it's a great way to train you to snap back into this state of well-being again. Because like Tristan said, and what I keep saying, the natural man tends to go towards worst case scenario because that is how we have survived our entire existence, but we're no longer running from bears, now we're running from media and bad news and, but the beauty about where we are today is that we can create those boundaries and those boundaries are beautiful things, you guys.
They are so wonderful. Boundaries are potentially the most loving thing you can gift yourself with. And it's not just boundaries with the media. It's boundaries with people in your life too. People that are toxic or people that you just don't jive with. They don't have to be completely toxic narcissists, but people that just don't add to your well-being or your happiness. You don't have to stop loving them, but you can create a boundary. And I promise you, you'll be better for it. They'll be better for it. It's okay to give yourself permission.
Yeah. And you're not doing them any favors by having no boundaries, because if they make you miserable, there's a decent chance that you're not making them very happy either.
Right.
So why feed that? There's no need to feed that.
Yep.
Now, children, that's a whole other question, because you can't just create a boundary with children. No. But you can
lock them in a bedroom. I'm kidding.
You can start changing the way that you interact with them, though, right?
Yeah.
You can take a big breath before doing the default action that you normally take, which might be yelling at them, might be spanking them, might be, making a passive aggressive comment to them. The important thing, though, is that when you slow it down, when you give yourself a moment to pause, and when you are able to check in and ask yourself, is this really the state I want to be in?
Yeah.
Then suddenly you open up possibility. Yeah. And that possibility is freedom to change your destiny.
Right.
And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing if you take responsibility for it.
Freedom to change your destiny. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Who knew that the mental mind games is so important? We probably don't give it enough. We talk about the chemistry of the body all the time, but we don't talk about the mental aspect of it and how your emotions literally turn genes on and off. Your stress creates inflammation. Your stress creates pain. You were talking about the chest pain.
Yeah.
I remember like 3 years ago when we were going through this, how I was getting like stomach pain and gallbladder pain and armpit pain. And I had all of these pains all over. And that was all my mind creating that. Imagine what our minds could do for us in reverse.
Right.
When we are when we train ourselves to be in this state of awe and happiness and euphoria, like what would follow from there is well-being, no inflammation, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about Roger Bannister before on the podcast, who was the first man to run a mile in 5 minutes, less than
Under
5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah.
He had to get there mentally before he got there physically.
Totally.
Okay, it had never been done. And there were a lot of people, most people, saying that it would never be done. And this guy, I don't know much about him, but this guy was able to create a vortex around himself of belief that said, no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And he willed himself to breaking that record.
Yeah.
And after he did that, everybody else did it. It was like no big deal at that point.
Yeah.
Because he broke it for everybody. He changed the world.
Yeah.
Because he was willing to put himself in a different state of mind.
Totally. He shifted like a world paradigm.
And if he can do that for the world of running, why can't you do that in your little sphere, right? Why can't you be the one to completely shift the energy of your household or your workplace or whatever it is, your neighborhood and community?
Right. Exactly.
That's an amazing thing. And when you tap into that potential, when you really start to see your future in that sense, rather than what could go wrong, suddenly life is not just something you're trying to survive. Life is something that you cannot wait to engage in.
Yeah.
Because you want to see the unfolding of that. In fact, the unfolding of all of that is the whole point. That is where you are in your really good place. That is heaven right there. I
think the one gift cancer gave me personally, I don't know about you, maybe your story is like this too, or maybe the gift that COVID-19 can give you guys is that we all have a clock on our heads. Like we are all going to die someday. We're all going to die. And up until 29, when you were diagnosed, I thought life goes on blissfully forever. Like there's no problems. Cancer made me want to live and live hard. It made me want to be like, oh my gosh, I have so many dreams that I have barely scratched the surface of. I need to get to work now because I love being here. I love this world. I love co-creating in it. I love my family. Like there is so much untapped potential, and like we've barely scratched the surface of it. And I want to get into it. And it gave me this and I'll be honest, it was a manic energy to get going with stuff. And now it's this beautiful, passive, almost like river-like energy where it just flows. And I'm like, and I love it. And that was the gift. Like, and again, and I don't want to talk about cancer lightly, because cancer is very devastating. You know, and
it affects all of us differently.
A coin has two sides, right? But the one side of the coin was, yes, it just made every moment in my life that much more precious. And I don't take anything for granted. Nothing.
Yeah. At the beginning of this, I talked about how cancer took my doctorate away from me, and it took my career away from me. But the reality is that cancer gave me the opportunity to live the life I really wanted.
Totally.
Because we had settled up to that point. Like we had settled hard.
There's a movie where, oh my gosh, what is that movie? It's called Zootopia, where the dad goes,
right. The bunnies.
What does he say? He's like, honey, do you know what your mom and I did? We settled down hard or something. I don't know.
We settled hard.
Yeah.
And that was us. Like we literally had settled to this idea that I was going to work for the military for 20 years. We were going to bounce around between Oklahoma, Mississippi, and like, I don't know, Montana, right? Wherever they sent me, us. And then we would finally get out and then decide what we wanted to do with our lives.
Yeah.
And I was going to be like 55 years old by that time.
Yeah.
And we had settled into that idea. And cancer, by ripping that idea right out of the picture, suddenly gave us this big open space to say, well, now what do we do?
Right.
And it could have been terrifying. We could have looked at it and said, oh my word, we are in so much trouble now. But we were fortunate in that we were able to see that open space and imagine the possibilities. We saw our future unfolding in a beautiful way in front of us, and we've chased that. And so far it has been great. And as long as we have stayed connected to that vision, we have been so good.
Right.
And me losing connection with that vision was a big part of what I had gone through for the last few months.
Right.
It was losing sight of that vision, losing sight of the possibility of the future, and getting caught up in the darkness that could be around us.
Totally.
And so we need to finish, but I need to finish my story too, because I did some blood testing. And as it turns out, what was going on with my lungs was that my ferritin was through the roof. It was like, what was it? 300 something, 400 something?
Wasn't it 600?
No.
Oh,
400 something, 410. It was really, really high, y'all. And
what is it supposed to be?
Like 75, 100 maybe. So I went and had somebody drain a bunch of blood out of my arm, which is a fun story I'm not going to share.
No, please don't.
And the wheezing went away like the next day. All right. Problem solved, just like that. But I couldn't get there physically until I got there mentally first.
Yeah.
I had to first overcome the fear that was being brought on by that symptom, by that little trigger. And I had to make peace with all the different possibilities before the world would say, okay, that's enough of that lesson. Let's move on to the next thing.
Yep. And we're still going to Costa Rica, hopefully.
And then, well, this is what's also fascinating. Costa Rica got pushed back by a month. Well, initially got canceled and then rescheduled. And what's so beautiful to me is that trip already has achieved its purpose for me.
Yeah.
I don't even care if I get to go at this point. I'm not fearing it anymore. I actually look forward to it, but it's okay with me if it never physically happens, because spiritually and energetically, it did so much for me. Yeah. I am in a million times better place now than I was when this whole thing got started.
Yeah.
And that is amazing.
It is.
And that to me is a testament to what is possible.
Yeah.
So, and it didn't take that long.
Yep.
It's been a month.
And that was like all your internal magical juju is what I want to say, what I want to call it. Like you created that. Like you didn't rely on a center force you to create that. Like that all came from you. You did that all by yourself. Like I remember, like I would go to bed early. I've been going to bed really early lately, like 9 o'clock.
I get a lot of alone time these days.
But he would like be a different person the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. And he would do like all this like soul work. And I tried so hard. To stay up so that I could be with him and hold space with him. And it's like, I was put under a spell where I was just put to sleep. And it was almost like the universe was like, no, he's got to do this by himself, you know, like, and he did. And I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
So,
and it was stepwise. Like I'm to a place now where I do some pretty intense meditation at night, but I couldn't have started with that. If you had said to me a month ago, you need to sit down and meditate for a half hour, I would have said, you need to go kick yourself in the butt and get out of my face.
It's practice.
Yes.
It's like saying you you've never trained for a marathon, but you got to go run a marathon now.
Right.
Like, no, you have to practice with 1 mile and then 2 miles and then 3 miles. And then eventually you can run that marathon.
And maybe because of my past, I don't know, but it's been a rapid progression, which is great. Like I've moved up from, I can meditate for 3 minutes without losing my mind to like, I can meditate for an hour now and it's bliss. Like I look forward to it. I love it. And maybe that's because I did so much meditation before, but I can tell you that meditating for me now is a completely different experience than it was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
10 years ago. It's only been 10 years.
Yeah,
okay.
10 years.
10
We're
years
not
ago.
that old.
400 years ago.
We got married 15 years ago.
That's true. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. I'm not suggesting that the specific steps that I went through are what you need to go through, but the principles that we've talked about, get your momentum in check, right? Figure out which direction you're headed and figure out what it takes you to go in a different direction.
Which wolf are you feeding?
Be consistent. Be not consistent. Be relentless.
Yeah.
All right. Treat this like
Feed
it is
the healthy wolf.
It's a job that you haven't even earned yet, that you've got to prove yourself worthy of.
Yeah.
Work at it so hard.
Yeah.
Impress the hell out of yourself because that's what you have to do here.
Totally.
And then pay attention to how you talk to yourself, right? Make that commitment to love yourself no matter what.
Yeah.
That is the only thing that matters. And then figure out how you need to do that.
And when those old toxic tapes come playing back, like forgive yourself and be like, just don't punish yourself for being like, oh man, it's back. It's, just forgive yourself and move on and make a switch.
Yeah. And hopefully the word forgive isn't like creating too many weird question marks in your head. All we mean by that is tell yourself it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Be gentle with yourself.
Let's share some books. What are some of your I'll share some of my favorite books.
Okay, we've got 1 minute.
We have 3 actually. So, because it's almost 15. So my favorites are Untethered Soul and Dying to Be Me, Conversations with God, Biology of Belief, guys. If you haven't read that, read that like today. It's so good. What else?
I really love, actually one of the first books that helped me get into this place way back in the day was The Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
Oh, that's such a good
Dan
one.
Millman. More recently though, Gabby Bernstein's newest book, Super Attractor. Holy crap, you guys.
It's a great book.
Like,
it's so
all right, I'm a guy. I don't think I'm really her target audience. I don't even care though. I listen to her audiobook. I like to listen to her doing her meditations and things like that. It gets me in the zone so quickly. I absolutely adore her. So check it out. It's a good book. It's a really good book.
Do you have a crush on her?
More like a mom crush, even though I'm probably older than her. I don't know how old she is.
I don't know how old she is.
No, she's just like, I listen to her and I'm like, oh, all is well.
All is well.
Life is good.
There's also Abraham Hicks.
Yes. Abraham Hicks, which
might be a little weird for people.
Keep an open mind with it. It's more about the teachings than the story.
Right. Totally. Asking It Is Given by Abraham Hicks.
Asking It Shall Be Given.
Or Esther Hicks, I guess. That's a weird story for another time.
But a good book.
It's a really good book. What is another book? You Are a Badass. That's a great one.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of really good books. Don't worry about the specific book. Find something that sounds good to you, that speaks to you, and start reading it. Totally. There's a book out there called The Tao of Poo. about Winnie the Pooh and how his philosophy
That's
can
great.
help your life. It doesn't matter. Just pick something that as you read it, it feels good.
Yes.
And then keep reading. Make that your thing. Throw your phone out the window unless your phone really does make you feel good. Don't lie to yourself.
Right.
And start reading.
And that's it. I
All
think.
right. We love you guys. Thank you for
Yes.
listening to this story. Thanks for letting us process this.
Totally.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Until next time.
Bye.